Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Meet Samuel. He's not just a cool little pixel character. He's the star of a mini-game we're going to talk about today. Have you ever played a game and thought, wow, I wish I could make something like this? Well, guess what? You absolutely can. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how. We'll break down the entire process into simple, easy-to-follow steps. Whether you want to build a simple game like Samuel S. or dream of creating the next big indie hit, this guide is for you. Ready to start your coding adventure? Awesome choice. Let's dive in. First things first, every great game starts with a great idea. But here's a pro tip. Start small. Seriously. Your first game doesn't need to be a massive open-world RPG. Simple ideas are perfect for learning the ropes. Think about classic games like Guess the Number, Tic-Tac-Toe, Snake, or even a basic rock, paper, scissors game. A simple platformer where a character just jumps over obstacles is also a fantastic starting point. The key is to define your goal and rules very clearly. What does the player need to do to win? What makes them lose? For example, in a Guess the Number game, the goal is to guess a secret number within a certain number of tries. The rule is, the computer tells you if your guess is too high or too low. Having this clarity from the beginning will make the entire process so much smoother. So, take a moment, brainstorm some simple ideas, and pick one that excites you. Once you've got your brilliant game idea, it's time to pick your tools. This means choosing a programming language and maybe a game engine. Don't let the options overwhelm you. We can break it down easily. If you're a complete beginner, Python is your best friend. It's incredibly readable and has a gentle learning curve. You can start by making text-based games right in the console, or you can use a library like Pygamy to add simple graphics. If you're more interested in making games that run directly in a web browser, then JavaScript is the way to go. It's the language of the web, and it's perfect for creating interactive experiences. Now, if you're feeling a bit more ambitious and want to get into professional-looking 2D or 3D games, you might look at C# with the Unity engine. And for the really advanced stuff, the big leagues, there's C++ with the Unreal Engine. But honestly, for your first project, stick with Python. It is the perfect environment to learn the fundamental logic of game development without getting bogged down by complex syntax. Alright, you've got your idea and your language. What's next? Planning? I know. You want to jump straight into writing code, but trust me, a little planning goes a long, long way. This is where you map out the game's logic. You don't need fancy software. A piece of paper or a simple text document is perfect. Sketch out the flow of your game. What happens first? What's the sequence of events? How does a player win or lose? Think about what data you need to keep track of. This could be the player's score, their health, the number of guesses they have left, or the position of their character on a screen. Let's use our Guess the Number example again. The flow would look something like this. The game starts. The computer generates a random secret number. The player is prompted to enter a guess. The game checks if the guess is correct, too high, or too low, and tells the player. This repeats until the player wins or runs out of guesses. Then, the game ends. See? By mapping this out, you've just created a roadmap for your code. This blueprint will be your guide, making the actual coding part much more organized and way less confusing. Now we get to the heart of every single game, the game loop. It sounds technical, but the concept is actually very simple. A game isn't a static thing. It's constantly running, waiting for you to do something, and updating what you see on the screen. The game loop is the engine that keeps this all going. It's a continuous cycle that does three main things over and over again, dozens of times per second. First, it takes player input. It checks if you've pressed a key, moved to the mouse, or clicked a button. Second, it updates the game state. Based on your input and the game's rules, it changes what's happening. Maybe your character moves, your score goes up, or an enemy's health goes down. Third, it renders the output. This means it draws everything to the screen. It clears the old frame and draws the new one, showing the updated positions of all the game elements. So, A simplified version of the loop in code would look like this. While the game is running, handle the player's input, update the game's state, and then draw everything to the screen. Every game, from Pong to the latest AAA blockbuster, is built around this fundamental concept. With our game loop ready to run, it's time to actually let the player interact with our game. This is where we add player input. How will the player control the character or make choices? For a keyboard-based game, you'll need to write code that listens for key presses. For example, you might check if the up, down, left, or right arrow keys are being pressed to move a character. For a puzzle game or a menu, you might be looking for mouse clicks and the position of the mouse cursor. If you're making a simple text-based game, your input might just be text that the player types in and presses enter. For example, in our Guess the Number game, the code would be something like guess equals input. Enter your number. In a Python game, using Pygamy, you'd have a part of your game loop that specifically checks for events, like Pygamy, key down, to see if its key was just pressed. Deciding on your control scheme is a core part of your game's design. Make it intuitive and responsive, and players will have a much better time. Okay, so the player can control things, but what can they actually do? This brings us to game mechanics. Mechanics are the rules and systems that make your game, well, a game. They are what makes it fun and challenging. This is where your creativity really comes into play. Think about the core activities in your game. A scoring system is a classic mechanic. How do players earn points? Defeating enemies, collecting items, solving puzzles. Movement is another huge one. How does the character move? Can't they jump? Can they double jump? What about collisions? What happens when the player runs into a wall, an enemy, or a puzzle? You might add enemies or obstacles that the player needs to avoid or overcome. Maybe there's a timer counting down, adding a sense of urgency, or perhaps the player has a limited number of lives. These mechanics are the building blocks of the gameplay experience. You can start with one or two simple ones, and then build more on top of them as you get more comfortable. The combination of mechanics is what will make your game unique. Now, let's talk about making your game look and sound good. Up until this point, your game might just be text on a black screen, and that's totally fine for learning. But if you want to take it to the next level, you'll want to add graphics and sound. If you're using Python, the Pygamy library is fantastic for adding 2D graphics. You can start by drawing simple shapes, like a rectangle for the player and circles for enemies. Then, you can graduate to using sprites, which are the 2D images for your characters and objects. You can find free sprites and background images on websites like OpenOrg, itch. Don't forget. So, adding a simple background music loop can completely change the feel of your game. Sound effects for actions like jumping, collecting a coin, or defeating an enemy provide valuable feedback to the player and make the world feel more alive. You can find plenty of free-to-use sound effects and music online as well. Remember, you don't need to be a professional artist or musician. Simple, consistent graphics and sounds can be incredibly effective. You've built your game, it has mechanics, and it even has some cool graphics. Are we done? Not quite. Now comes one of the most important steps: testing and debugging. It's time to play your own game. A lot. The goal here is twofold. First, you're a bug hunter. You need to try and break your game. Do things you wouldn't expect a normal player to do. What happens if you walk into a wall and keep pressing the key? Does the score update correctly every single time? Are there any situations that cause the game to crash? When you find a bug end, you will find bugs every John Doe's. Your job is to dive back into the code and figure out what's causing it. This process is called debug. The second goal is to check if the game is actually fun. Is the difficulty right? Is it too easy or too frustrating? Are the controls intuitive? This is a great time to ask a friend to play your game and give you some honest feedback. They'll almost certainly find issues you never even thought of. Testing and debugging isn't just about fixing errors. It's about refining the experience and making your game the best it can be. Your game works, the major bugs are squashed, and it's pretty fun to play. Now it's time to add the polish. This is the step that takes your project from a functional prototype to a finished feeling game. Think about the little extras that make a game feel complete. For example, instead of just dropping the player straight into the action, create a main menu screen with options like Start Game and Quit. This gives the player a moment to get ready. What happens when the game ends? Instead of just closing the program, give them the option to restart and play again. You could also think about adding different difficulty levels. Maybe an easy mode with more lives or a slower timer, and a hard mode for experts. This is also a great time to add some extra flair with simple animations. Make your character have a little bounce when they land from a jump, or add a sparkling effect when they pick up a coin. These small details might not seem like much on their own, but together, they add a layer of professionalism and care that players really appreciate. And finally, the moment you've been waiting for. Sharing your creation with the world. There's nothing more rewarding than seeing someone else play and enjoy something you built from scratch. But how do you get your game from your computer into their hands? If you wrote your game in Python, you can use a tool like PyInstaller to package your code and all its assets into a single executable file, like a Ashi on Windows. This makes it super easy for others to run your game without needing to have Python installed. Once your game is packaged, where do you put it? There are some amazing platforms for indie developers. itch.io is a fantastic website where you can upload your game, create a custom page for it, and share it with a huge community of gamers and developers. GitHub is another great option, especially if you want to share your source code and show other programmers how you built it. Don't be shy. Share the link with your friends and family. Post it on social media. Getting your game out there is the final, thrilling step in your journey as a game developer. And there you have it, a complete 10-step roadmap to coding your very own game. We went from a simple idea all the way to a polished, shareable project. It might seem like a lot, but remember, you just need to take it one step at a time. Start small, stay curious, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every bug you fix is a lesson you've learned. The most important thing is to have fun with the process. Your first game is a huge accomplishment, no matter how simple it is. Thank you so much for watching and for joining me on this creative journey. If you found this guide helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't want to miss our next coding adventure. Happy coding, everyone.